Boom, we're in. There's a slight false beginning. I'm Chris Grimes, the curator of the Good Listening To Show. This is Ben Akers. I've just got to fiddle with a button on LinkedIn. Sorry, not LinkedIn, on Instagram. Same difference, different social media platform. To get it to catch up, there's a button that takes a little while to start to be a live link. It's working now. Boom, we're in. Lovely jubbly. So that was a false beginning, Ben Akers.
Okay.
So now my podcast editor, Dan, will know exactly what to do. But lovely to have you here, Ben. So I'm going to start properly now, throw a bit of happy smoke at you, and I'll get you to talk in a couple of seconds. So going live in 3, 2, 1. Well, hello, and welcome to a very important, I suppose, red letter day, halcyon day, important day in the Good Listening To Show clearing. This is a special series strand, which is called Best of Bristol, Bristol Voices, which sets out to tell the story behind the story of all the best of all the creative endeavours that are happening in my home city of Bristol. And I'm delighted to welcome Ben Akers, who is the founder of something seismically important called Talk Club, which is a men's mental fitness movement. It's talking and listening movement called Talk Club. I'm going to get you to tell us all about the story behind the story of it. And I'm delighted to have you here, Ben. I just this morning watched your extraordinary TED talk that you gave 4 years ago as the movement began. And since then, you've gathered an extraordinary amount of momentum. So it's an absolute delight and pleasure to have you here. So welcome aboard, Ben Akers.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And if we don't have any sort of point of reference, just tell the quick open question of what would you say that you do? I've just blown a bit of happy smoke at you. So go where you like, how you like, as you like throughout the curation of this structure. But Ben Akers, how's morale? What's your story of the day? And then what would you like to say you would answer to? What do you do then? Over to you.
Story of the day is I begin every day with how are you out of 10. So can I ask you, Chris, how are you out of 10 this morning?
I was thinking about that, not knowing you are going to ask, and I'm going to give you a 7 today.
A 7, okay.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. I'm a good 8.5. I'm a good 8.5 chatting to you. I like to exist around an 8.5. What do I do? I'm the co-CEO of a charity I didn't mean to start. That's basically what I do. The charity is called Talk Club. We've been running as a charity for nearly 4 years this April, and we've been an organisation for nearly 6. We are a talking and listening community for men. And the reason why we exist is, unfortunately, trigger warning for anyone out there. Is because suicide's the biggest killer of men under 50. So statistically, the thing most likely to kill me is the reason why we exist.
That was a staggering statistic that I heard you talk about in your extraordinary TED talk about the fact that the biggest killer of men is themselves statistically. That's extraordinary. And also what got you on the open road, I know, was the documentary that you made about Steve. So do you want to just tell us the story behind the story of that?
Yeah, so Steve was my childhood best friend, brother by another mother. We were best friends from the age of 11, and we lived in if I'm honest, stuff that was going on for me at home. I had quite a turbulent upbringing, a home life, if you like, and he was stability in my life. He was sort of like him and his family were my stability. So we were there. I was there almost every day, and then throughout sort of as we got older, as we drifted apart, and then 10 years ago last May, he took his own life. So it was a real punch in the face for me. I'd never been confronted by suicide before, so I've been around mental ill health most of my life, but I'd never been confronted by suicide. I never thought that he would. It was the last thing I ever thought in the world that he would do. So after 3 years of therapy and trying to work out a lot of whys, never find out why, I decided to use the little skills I have of problem solving and filmmaking, and I made a film called Steve. And the idea was to get men to start talking. So I took it as I did it as a pub tour. So I went to where men were. So 50 screenings. Well, 49 screenings I did before lockdown, and the 50th was meant to be at the Bristol Beer Factory, which is sort of like how we met.
Yes.
So yeah.
I'll
So
explain a bit more about that in a second, but also what I so enjoy and think is so richly profound is the construct of the 3 words that you ask, and then the second 3 words. I know it's on display behind you, beneath beautifully Clearhead, the non-alcoholic lager brand that I know the Bristol Beer Factory have, I suppose, brewed in your honor, because that's a really wonderful strategic partnership. So we'll talk about that too. But just talk us through how are you out of 10?
Yeah, so I mean, my advertising background, I used to run ad agencies, and sort of I started as an advertising creative, selling crap to people they didn't need. And what I found was that creativity has an amazing power. It does. And when we decided that there were 6 of us that started Talk Club. So my co-CEO Gav, Neil Harrison, my wife Claire, a bloke called Blue O'Connor, who's in the other room, and Tom Button, and we all met through the film. So basically, people were in it, or people helped make it, or Gav did the music for it, and what we were finding was that we needed something really, really, really simple for men to get their heads around. And when Blue said to me, I'm working with kids mentoring, and why I get them to talk is saying, how are you out of 10? And I was like, well, men are just kids. Let's just sort of like, just keep it really, really simple. Because what we do is we find it really, really hard. Men find it really, really hard, especially. I'm doing broad brushstrokes here, but we were not taught how to talk feelings by our parents and our dads and our granddads. So when someone says, how are you feeling? Your automatic reaction is, yeah, I'm fine. It's almost like a negative. Sort of like, yeah, I wanted to create this stability. When you sort of say, can you put that into words? They find it really hard, because we've never been taught this foreign language, feelings. You might as well say, go and speak Latin to your mate, right? I've not done that either. But when you say put your number into it, like when I asked you where you are as a 7, normally I don't have a 7. I won't let people have a 7. I normally go 6.5 or 7.5. I want you to sort of like lean one way or the other. But actually, by the way you said 7, I knew that there was probably a lower 7. So I don't want to put you into a situation. So it's 7, or normally is an automatic answer. You didn't answer automatically. You thought about it, which means you probably are a 7, right? So
yes, and it's 7 for me is a good number.
Yeah.
7 is a real balance for me, where I'm not. There are times when I'm utterly exhilarated, and obviously there's a higher score. But I would say it's not about me, but 7 is an optimistic answer from me. I rarely go beneath that.
Yeah, but that's brilliant, because what happened is that sort of like, I reckon even though during my 20s, when I was flying all over the world and working on amazing campaigns, and sort of, I don't think I let myself get higher than a 6, because if I let myself get higher than a 6, I've got to have lower than the 6. I was just probably numb for the whole of my 20s. But what I found is, with these numbers, is that I like to be an 8.5. I feel fit, I feel healthy. I could probably do with a bit more exercise at the moment. I'm 50 this year. I'm sort of like, I'm still feeling, I'm feeling in that world. I'm not a 9, but 8.5 is a good optimistic number for me. When I'm a 7.5, I start feeling a little bit on the slide. I've been 6.5 in the past couple of weeks, and I'm not in a good space. And during the pandemic, I was like 4.5, because I've got to let myself, if I have the highs, I've got to let myself have the lows. And this is the whole idea of mental fitness, is that same as physical fitness. Like, if you know that you're feeling physically fit, I like your phone call to me this morning. I'm just going to the gym. I'm sort of like, brilliant, that's amazing. I'm so glad you're going to the gym this morning. But the way that when that's what we do, when we see people going for a run, or we see people going to the gym, we congratulate them. But when it comes to our mental health, if someone says to you, "I'm going to therapy," you go, "What's wrong?" You
Yeah.
don't go, "What?" You don't go like, "Oh, he must be unfit because he's going for a run." But when he's looking after his mental health, you go, "Oh, what's wrong? There
Yes.
must be something's wrong." So a lot of what we do in Talk Club about mental fitness is about positivity,
Yes.
about saying it's okay to look after yourself. It's okay to sort of like want to be a higher number. It's okay to sort of like want to exist at a higher number,
Yeah.
and that positive world is really really good for men, because if you are if you're mentally fit, you're mentally strong. If you're mentally strong, you're good for everyone around you. So if you're a high number and you're regularly a high number, then we're starting working into sort of men's egos, but the way that men communicate, and as I said, keeping it really really simple, because men are just kids. So
I love that. And also, I just love the simplicity and the profoundness of how are you out of 10. It's not how are you out of 10. That's a way of hurrying it slightly.
yeah,
But it's deliberately a sentence in two halves, if you like,
yeah,
because it's an equation of two halves.
yeah, yeah. It was literally, and like everyone, like our branding, black and white. Everything that we do is really. I have to. Me and the team think really, really hard to keep things really, really simple,
Yeah.
and it's economic. We try and be really economical with words. We try and be economical with messaging, because we go like, you've got, especially nowadays when you're being bombarded by thousands of messages a day. If I can cut through the crap and
Yes.
just try and go like, as you say, not rush it. How are you out of 10? Like, I care about you. I'm getting that out of 10 goes, I want you to give me some, I want to give you some time to be heard. Because
Yeah.
quite a lot of the time, actually, when it comes down to mental health, it's not actually about the talking, it's about the listening, it's about being
Absolutely.
heard.
Yes.
Because we're not, we don't give ourselves space or time or the opportunity to be heard. And that's what Talk Club is basically. It
Yes.
should be called Listening Club. but but
Yes.
but
And I
that
love the bish bash boshness, which is something I am an advocate of.
mm,
And talking to men as simple creatures, I think, is profound as well. And I love the fact that you sort out where men hang out for the constituency of where best to host talk clubs. And that was where I knew that the Bristol Beer Factory, when I did a show with Sam Burrows, the MD of the story behind the story of the Bristol Beer Factory last autumn, he passed the golden baton on to someone in his organization called Carrie Hilton, but also to you, most importantly.
mm. Yeah, I
Carrie
mean, it's
Halford, sorry.
Gary Halford. I talked to her just before I talked to you, and and I think a lot of that's what we are. We have to make it comfortable. So the last thing, like a lot of what I do is I try and make it easy for people to say yes. That's all I try and do. I try and remove as many barriers as possible, and you've already got a lot of barriers there for talk. You've got years of stigma. You've got years of build up of conditioning on not talking about your mental health. Um, and even just when we say mental health, right? Like, people think mental ill health. They
Yeah.
don't think mental health as
Yeah.
physical health. If you say
Yeah.
physical health, you don't think physical ill health. Um, so we've got all these barriers up there, and all these things to cut through. And that was one of the major reasons why we approached Sam about Clearhead, because I love pubs. I grew up in pubs. Me and Steve spent all our sort of teenage years from the age of 12, 13 in the working man clubs and in South London. And I love them, but I'm not. But I know about alcohol and depression.
Yeah.
I use alcohol. I've had my own fun with alcohol over the years, but I'm a father of three now. I can't even drink, so it's like it's I can't handle the hangover. But it's
Yes.
like but to me, being in male comfortable spaces,
Yes.
pubs. That's the reason why we went to Sam with Clearhead, because if you can create an alcohol-free space where, and it has to look like a beer, has to taste like a beer, has to feel like a beer, and
Yes.
men feel comfortable, then they can actually be there as well, without feeling the pressure of alcohol, because alcohol can be a damaging to your mental health. It can be, if used irresponsibly.
And indeed, Clearhead has so many ramifications for the community in Bristol because it helps with all sorts of initiatives.
Yeah.
You're at the heart of it because you were the genesis point. But I know that 5% of all sales goes to Talk Club, and there's been and you know, it's a difficult job you have because you're trying to grow the movement. So how many Talk Clubs are there nationally at the moment, and increasingly internationally?
So the first ever Talk Club was where you were. Right, it was literally in the back of before it was even the BBF studio. It was actually it was an industrial kitchen, and that was the first ever Talk Club, and that was in April 2019, and we now have over 120 clubs around the country. We have over 5,000 men in our community. We have been working with Bristol Prison. We now have 4 Talk Clubs a day in Bristol Prison. It is growing and growing. We've got a staff of 5 full timers and another 5 part timers, and we can't keep up with the growth. If I'm honest, we need people to buy more Clearhead so we can employ more people. But it's the need is there.
Yes.
And the growth is there because people need it. I mean, we've got 16 alone in Bristol.
Yeah.
So,
and one other thing I'd like you to talk about is because of your natural constituency in your endeavor, which is men's mental fitness, even how you've crafted the flyer, the bit of paper, is a brilliant story. So just tell us that quickly.
I haven't got one here. So yes, it's so basically what it was there was we were creating what the rules are. So basically a Talk Club is there's 4 rounds in a Talk Club. So how are you out of 10? What you're grateful for? How you can look after your mental fitness this week, and then your checkout number. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to create this flyer where if you picked it up, if you didn't take anything else away from Talk Club, right? If you pick up this flyer, you can start your own Talk Club. You don't need to join the community. You can just start it with your mates, right? So the idea was like literally. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I was like, and I say in my TED talk is like, men don't read instructions, but we need rules on how to talk, right? And the idea was literally, I'm going to have this on a sheet of paper, and I was like, okay. Now, what's the first thing a bloke's going to do? He's going to fold this piece of paper up, and he's going to put it up to, it's an A4. It's going to go down to an A6, an A7, and I was like, okay, well, why don't we use every single side of this piece of paper to convince you to be part of TC? So what you do is when you open it up, it's actually a journey through why you need to be part of Talk Club. But again, it's on black and white. It's a 2-sided PDF. It's been downloaded thousands of times and printed out thousands and thousands of more. The whole thing is that openness. We wanted it to be, again, easy to say, yes, you can run this out of your photocopier at work. You can run this and you can print out 1,000 yourself. And we wanted to make it just easy for everyone.
Yes.
So like even when designers come to me, because like, I'm lucky enough to have access to some of the best designers in the world. So why is my brand so shit? Because it's designed to be shit. It's designed to be accessible. It's designed to be it's designed to be really, really there's a great design company across the road from us, and they I've completely forgot their name. It'll come to me. But they created this font called Bloke, and
wow.
And this is the typeface here is very much like a typewriter face, because I want to talk to builders and I want to talk to solicitors. Yeah. I want to sort of like make sure that everyone feels. Fiasco is the fantastic design company that created Bloke.
Let's make sure we've handled that. They are Fiasco.
And
the font is Bloke, and I love that.
Bloke.
Of course, you've got the font Bloke because that's your natural constituency.
Yeah, and they created that for us. But this is the whole point. Is just sort of like the thing is, I want to almost create anti-design. I want to make it so accessible that you don't feel intimidated by it. And we've had brilliant designers come up to us and try to play with the brand, and it's just like. And then when I do the little fold up and I put it into all those flyers that you see at coffee shops, and I go, which one stands out? And the plain black and white one is the one that leaps out at you, because that's what TC is. TC is about. It's all about black. It should be black and white. It should be simple, because talking about your feelings should be simple. It should be accessible. It should be easy.
And
So
I love the cut of your jib in addressing men's mental fitness through the gift of origami.
yeah, I wish I had one with me now. So yeah.
Wonderful. And there is going to be a very exciting moment at the end, which is show us your QR code, please. So I know that we're going to point people to the Talk Club website, and they will definitely be able to download the origami men's mental fitness PDF as a matter of course.
Great.
So it is my great privilege, joy and pleasure. And also I'm sincerely really happy to have you here, because this show is also a weekly show on UK Health Radio, which has a global audience reach across 54 countries of 1.4 million listeners and growing. I really, really hope that this will further amplify the cause, which is so seismic, and also further everything that you, Ben Akers and Talk Club are up to.
Thank you, Chris.
You're very welcome. So it's my great pleasure now to curate you through the structure of the Good Listening To show, Best of Bristol Voices special series strand, where there's going to be a clearing a tree, a lovely juicy storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's going to be some alchemy, some gold, a couple of random squirrels, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, a golden baton, and a cake. It's absolute good luck with that. It's not a memory test, but I'm going to... You're smiling, which is the good thing.
I watched your video about 6 times, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be bananas. We'll see where we get to. Yeah,
this is going to be bananas. Is even the colours look? It's sort of bananas are us. Fantastic, and it matches. I've noticed it resonates with the branding of Clear Head as well, which is a different hue of yellow.
Yeah.
So a clearing, first of all, as I say, it's not a memory test. I'm going to gently curate you through it. So Ben Akers, founder of Talk Club and documentary filmmaker, awesome creative. What is a clearing or serious happy place for you? Where do you go to get clutter-free, inspirational, and able to think?
So I had to think about this one, right? Because I rarely get, if I'm honest, I rarely get clutter-free, because I've just got a very, I mean, most of my ideas come up with while I'm walking, or in the back of the cab, or in sort of something like that, right? But where do I feel most comfortable is on a football pitch, literally. So my clearing is actually on a football pitch. As soon as I walk across the white lines, I turn into my brain switches into something else, because I've got a very busy brain, and it suddenly just concentrates on the game, and I get lost in the game, so I can be creative on the field, and it's sort of and I play very instinctively. So it's sort of so my happy place has always been, since I was probably about 10, and I'm 50 this year. So the past 40 years, my happy place has been on a football field.
In all my circa 250 episodes, nobody has yet said on the football pitch. The beautiful game, and the beautiful game of men's mental fitness, is exactly where you belong. In the back of the net. Awesome. So who do you support, Ben? You're from London, but is it Bristol that you've gone native?
No, so I'm an Arsenal fan. I'm a Gooner through and through. But I love all football. I watch all football. If I walk through a park and a bunch of kids are playing, I'll stop for a minute and watch football. I mean, I've been to City games. I've been to Rovers games. I've been to many. I was even watching Spurs the other day. More hoping or happy that they're losing. But I actually love. I love the doesn't matter who you are. Okay, away from elite sport, but it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you do. On the football field, I mean, I've played football with kids in Kerala, who've got nothing, and the happiness they get from playing football on the beach.
Yes.
I just think as a leveler, if you like, no matter who you are, where you come from, the joy that you can get out of just kicking a ball around with jumpers for goalposts, and it has travelled me. I've been lucky enough to work all over the world and travel all over the world, and no matter where I land, when I landed in Bristol, when I landed in Manchester, when I landed in Sydney, first thing I do is get myself a regular game of football, because suddenly you've got 22 friends, and it's just amazing. So football is my happy place. Yes.
Great answer. And of course, the football arena, the football game, the stadium is a bastion of men's mental health anyway, ironically and especially. So that makes complete sense. And as you're an Arsenal fan, I'll just let you know, in Bristol, I had a wee next in the queue behind Tony Adams recently.
Yes. So we've seen him. We got a photograph of. So Gav's my co-CEO as a gooner as well, and we were walking down through Wapping Wharf, and Tony was having a coffee. So we just sort of like, we've got this photograph of us and Mr. Arsenal. So yeah, he's from around here. So yeah.
Ah, is he?
Yeah, he lives around here. Yeah.
Because I was in New Cut Coffee, and he went into the disabled loo, because that's all they've got as a disabled loo. And whilst he was in there, I said to the people behind the counter, "Do you know you've got a legend in your disabled toilet?" And they were like, "What?" But anyway, I watched the very tall legend walk past.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is a great clearing on the football pitch. Love that. So now I'm going to arrive with a tree, which is going to interrupt your game a bit, and I'm going to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. I've got a couple of comedy props I forgot to get out. It's an apple. How'd you like these apples? And this is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 now, where you've had 5 minutes, or as long as you've needed before we knew we were going to be doing this together, to have thought about 4 things that have shaped you, Ben. Take this where you like, when you like, as deep as you like, how you like. 3 things that inspire you. 2 things that never fail to grab your attention, and borrow from the film, oh, that's a bit, oh, squirrels or shiny object syndromes. Where do what are your monsters of distraction? And then the 1 is a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know until you tell us. So again, not a memory test, but over to you to shake the canopy of your tree as you see fit.
Great. So I think it's got to be in the centre circle, hasn't this tree? I mean,
It's got to be where? Sorry, I didn't hear that. It's got to be
in the centre circle of the football field. I mean, I did go deep to start with. The things that have shaped me is my relationship with my mum is a massive thing that shaped me. I mean, my dad was schizophrenic when I was growing up. So his illness and then leaving, and then what that turned into, this sort of this strange relationship. Back in my day, they had this thing called the 11 plus, which any of your younger listeners will have no idea about. But I failed my 11 plus because it was around the time that I was in a battered wives and kids refuge in Woolwich, and I think my relationship with my mum, that happening, my dad illness, my dad leaving, has really shaped me into my drive. It's given me a massive drive. So a lot of that, and the way that my mum handled it with such dignity and respect, and has given me the ability to sort of believe in myself, has really shaped me. The second thing, sort of like of shaping me, was meeting my wife, as sort of like quite a lot of these people are, and moving to Sydney. So we were together, and then we moved to Sydney. I grew, as I say, I was in advertising, used to run ad agencies, and then when we were in Sydney, I started working for. I'd had enough of the big corporate world, and I started working for an agency called Republic of Everyone, and it was only doing ethical and sustainable work. So it was ideas that were good for the world. So this really shaped my creativity, really shaped me inside what I needed to, how I needed to add purpose to my creativity. So I think that was a massive sort of like a massive push inside who I was for that, and meeting a bloke called Ben Peacock was sort of a massive shaping what I came about. I think 3 has got to be about having kids, about being a parent.
And just to stop you one moment, who is Ben Peacock? Just to unpack that.
So Ben Peacock was the founder of Republic of Everyone, a
Yeah.
hugely inspirational man. He still is. But he gave me so much belief in myself at that point. A lot of I'm very lucky to have worked with some amazing people throughout my career, and he's definitely one of those people who sort of shaped my way of thinking, sort of like turned me from uh, sort of like someone who just thought about ideas and start actually using those ideas for power. So he gave me a lot of purpose to my creativity. So working for Republic of Everyone he was massive in that.
I don't doubt he's very proud of you for what you've curated with the bish bash bosh simplicity of the demographic of what you've curated for Talk Club.
Yeah, I mean it's I don't talk to him as much as I should, but yeah, I mean we've had those conversations. Yeah. Yeah, as I say, being a father, I mean, but again, Ben was sort of like, I was lucky enough to sort of see he's sort of 5 years older than me, so seeing how he was with his kids
Yeah.
and having like almost big brothers in the world to sort of see how they react with their kids. I've got 3 kids under 12. My house is very very loud because they all have lots of friends. But I think that has shaped me inside uh, why I exist, why we do what we do, and also just sort of like the respect for little people. But I'll go on to that in one of my things later. And I struggle with the fourth one, but I think because I don't want to do a negative, but Steve's death has shaped me.
Of course, yes.
It has. And I wish that he hadn't. I wish someone had created Talk Club 10 years ago so I didn't have to do it. Um, but and he'd still be with us. But his passing and the fallout from his passing has shaped sort of where I am. So I've got sort of like I've got lots of positives, but I've also got a drive of the negative. So
Yes.
I'm going to put that in that fourth.
And I know it's coming up to the 10-year anniversary. So you've had your 40s without him, and then now you're embarking on your 50s.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of like so May was his 10th passing, but the fact of we both would have been 50. um it was quite hard work with sort of like the thought of yeah we were born 4 days apart. We were sort of like we always used to have joint parties up until sort of like our 18th was a joint, our 21st was a joint. So I'd imagine our 50th would have been a joint. So it was our 40th would have been a joint. It is hard. It is hard, and it's hard to sort of like it's hard to. I mean, I've had months of therapy sitting in trying to work this one's out, and I still haven't got the answers. So to anyone who might be it might be worrying about my reactions, but I sort of that there is something there that I still need to have. I still need to keep him here.
Yeah.
I can't. I am when I do my talks, I talk about him. It is hard, but it's hard for a couple of minutes, and then we go on to the good stuff that's come out of his death. Because I need. If I'm honest, I mean, I've had hundreds of people now say to me, "I'm only alive because of the film," or "I'm only alive because of Talk Club," or thank you from a wife or a partner in the street because of that. And so his death has meant something. His death has meant that hundreds of other men can like live. So it has shaped me, and it has shaped sort of like where I've moved to. Yeah.
And just to reincorporate your purpose, super imperative of ideas to help the world, that's absolutely in pursuance of that endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of it's sort of it's something that the drive is there. I mean, and we go down back to the full circle of my dad being schizophrenic, and you sort of going, Steve had this such perfect life, as a child, where I was so attracted towards sort of like his stability, and yeah, I mean, I've come out of it many a time in therapy. Why him, not me? But
Was he 4 days older than you, or the other way around?
I was 4 days older than him. He was the puppy of the two. So, but it was funny. It was like we like everyone. We came as a pair. I mean, even with our first jobs together, it was like you didn't see Steve without Ben or Ben without Steve.
Yes.
So it was, yeah. So it was that that bizarreness, and even with my TED talk, I woke up. I found it really, really hard to actually put that thing together. Anyone who's done a TED talk knows this, but they give you a coach and they work with you for months beforehand. And I couldn't remember it. I just couldn't. It wasn't going, because I'm not talking about tractors. I'm talking about my friend.
Yes. Yes.
And I actually woke up that morning, and I woke up at 5 o'clock that morning when I was going to give my talk, and I dreamt that Steve was still alive. So I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to ring Caroline and tell her that sort of like I can't do the talk, and maybe Steve could come on and sort of stuff like that. And then suddenly, I mean, I must have believed he was still alive for a good couple of minutes, and then suddenly suddenly it hit me, and I remember breaking down and crying in my hotel room, and then sort of like trying to go out for a run, and then breaking down and crying on the street, and sort of like this.
I've just watched it this morning. It is truly, truly profound and authentic. Most authentic, because you're really, really, really present and gulping for your breath in between bits, which is not I think it's a beautiful testament to your love of Steve in what comes through. And anyone who wants to see, obviously look at the TED talk, Ben Akers, and it was the Royal Tunbridge Wells TED talk that you did.
Yeah, it's sort of like it was. I mean, it was up there as sort of like one of the moments that really propelled Talk Club to the forefront. So I'm so glad. I mean, they offered. I broke down and couldn't in both rehearsals, and they sort of said, "Do you want to do this? You don't have to do this." And I sort of like, "I need to do this," and I'm really glad that I pushed through and did it.
Well, vulnerability is not a weakness; it's a superpower, and that's the superpower of the movement. That's why it's so important.
Yeah, but it is sort of one of these things where, I mean, like it was. I mean, giving that speech to 1,000 people, and then I a standing ovation, and I just ran off stage, and they pushed me back on to sort of like try and soak up the audience. And it was funny after, because that was literally just before lockdown, and I'm pretty sure I hugged 1,000 people. So I'm probably a super spreader, but it was sort of like, but it was an amazing. I mean, anyone who gets the opportunity or puts themselves forward to do something like that, the Tunbridge Wells team are amazing, and it was a sort of like, it was a life defining, changing moment for me. So I'm so glad I did it. Yeah.
Again, I know I'm reincorporating deliberately, but ideas that help the world. Bosh, fantastic.
Thank you.
We're on to 3 things that inspire you now, Ben Akers.
Okay, so the 3 things that I've got in my head were people. So what a boss that I had was a gentleman called John Hegarty, or Sir John Hegarty. He ran an agency called BBH, Bartle Bogle Hegarty, and he was sort of like, he was the first person that I was really. I read an article by him when I was 14, and I said I want to write adverts because I read this article by him. And 15 years later, I was lucky enough to work for him, or 14 years later. And he was just he's still a really, really inspiring man. He's the man behind all the Levi's ads, all the Audi ads. He inspired me to think differently, and to sort of, one of his famous ones was when the world zigs, you zag. So for BBH, and that was probably again, an inspirational moment in reading Creative Review when I was 14, going, this is what I want to do. I want to be like him. So the honor of sort of working with him for 2 years and for him, and then when I decided I was going to move to Australia, I walked in and resigned to him, and he's like the chairman. He's not my direct boss. There's 3 layers between him and me, but I went in and he goes, if it's money, I'll just the way that he held it. He goes, where are you going? If it's money, we'll work that out. Please don't tell me you're going to one of the other ones. And I said, I'm going to go and work in Australia for Dave Droga. And he goes oh, David's brilliant. I'm happy with that.
Yes.
It was just lovely. He just has so much respect, and like the way he handles himself is so respectful. So he's an absolute inspiration for me. He's sort of the godfather of advertising for me. The second person that inspires me is my co-founder Gav. I'm inspired daily by the way he thinks and the way he works. I think we push each other to sort of to come up with these ideas, and I've learned a hell of a lot working with him. We didn't know each other before we started this thing, but we've sort of we're work wives. We've got sort of like we've got these relationships. So I think he's definitely Gav is an inspiration because he doesn't think how I think as well. He's sort of I think we're very complementary in the way that we work, and the reason why we're
Gav's second name for those that don't know that?
So Gavin Thorpe. So he was sort of he still is a musician, but he was a musician. We met through our love of Arsenal, but also he did all the music for Steve and my second film, Our Kids, Our Lives. And it's just as an inspiration, as a daily inspiration of being nudged and going, what about this? What about this? What about this? And where we've got Talk Club 2, I think is very inspirational. And then my third is my kids. It's sort of like it's a bit of an easy one, but they are. I just love them. I love hanging out with my kids. Not all together; they get on my fucking nerves. But individually, or even in pairs, even just with 2 of them. But individually, I just sort of they've got such. They're so different. My littlest is just free. Her creativity is just free. And I almost sort of like I sit there and I just listen to her, and I almost feel like I'm making notes and going like, oh, I wish I could interpret that. I can use that in what I'm doing at the moment. Yeah. And my boy is my middle one, and he's just fearless the way he does stuff. And like even just the way he plays football, he's just fearless. And I find them. My eldest one she's so considerate, and she's so honest about who she is, and I find them all very inspirational inside. I want to be more like you 3 as a person. So I'm learning from the way I look at things is mentors, and I say this quite a lot to when I do talks to colleges or whatever, is that your mentors don't have to be older, they can be younger too. And my 3 kids are mentors to me. They're also really annoying and really wrong all the time, but they're also some of these little sparks of genius that they come up with.
Yes.
I sit there and go, that's brilliant. I'm gonna hold on to that one today. So yeah, so those are my 3 moments of inspiration, people of inspiration.
Beautiful answers. Thank you so much. And now, squirrels, borrowed from the film Up, where the dog goes, oh, squirrels. What's your shiny object syndrome? What are your 2 squirrels or monsters of distraction?
Okay, so Arsenal is it's sort of like it's. I want to say football, but I can sort of like I can listen to football without going squirrel on it. But anything that's sort of like, and obviously, we've just had the transfer deadline, and I've been refreshing all the different things, seeing if we're going to sign a striker. But like literally, I can, if I'm in the most important conversation in the world and someone brings up Arsenal, I'm off. We're off there. We're just gone. And look, we could sit there and just talk Arsenal for 20 minutes. So anything Arsenal is definitely a squirrel moment. But what the other thing what stops me is is real behavior change ideas. Like literally, if I'm still sort of, even though I'm not in the ad world or the creative world of that sort, I'm still sort of surrounded by. I still look out for these things, and when I see an idea that's sort of like going, oh Christ, I wish I'd have come up with that, or that is really clever. That's getting someone to think differently or to
Yeah.
behavior change is really important to me. It's like what Ben Peacock taught me about how you can use creativity for good. That evil power for good is the way that we phrased it. Though that's my squirrel. That's a squirrel.
Yes.
Like literally, I can. I'm still thirsty for new creative ideas all the time. So that's definitely a squirrel moment for me.
Love that. No one's ever said I'm still thirsty for that squirrel. That's boom. And now the one is a quirky or unusual fact about you, Ben Akers, founder of Talk Club, that we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us.
So there's thousands, but
I'm sure there are.
but I'm going to go with I've got the freedom to the City of London.
Ooh.
So if you can see my tattoo, that is London's tattoo.
Yes.
So on my 21st birthday, my dad, my granddad, my great granddad, they all had the freedom. And what you can do is it used to be like a license for trading in the centre of London. It goes back to the only thing in the UK that's older is the coronation. So I've got that. So I went up to the Guildhall and sort of like swore my allegiance to the Queen and had to sort of do this thing for my 21st birthday, and so I've got the Freedom City of London, and I've taken sheep across London Bridge.
Of course you have. I was going to say that's what that thumbs up for me, which is that means you've got the right to get your sheep across London Bridge. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so my family were actually ironmongers, right? So that's my freedoms attached to is the ironmonger deliveries. But I was doing a film called Slowing Down Fast Fashion, and with Alex James from Blur, and we were it was all based around the money came from Prince Charles's campaign for wool, so it was all about sustainability and wool as a sustainable resource.
I thought you said for a minute campaign for wolves and being an Arsenal.
No, yeah, no. Campaign. It's my dodgy accent. Campaign for wool. WOOL. And what we did was I was filming. There was part of London Fashion Week, and they had these sheep, and I was just I turned up early, and I was chatting away to the bloke, and I sort of said, "Is this to do with freedom?" And he said, yeah. He said, "How do you know about the freedom?" And I sort of told him the story. And he goes, "Would you like to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I've taken sheep across London Bridge because they had these sort of like they were doing it for slots for I think they did about like 10 people got to take sheep across London Bridge. And before they opened it up, I sort of took these 5 sheep across, put them across London Bridge. But there's always other weird things that you can and can't do, and I don't quite know. Like someone told
the world exclusive that Ben Akers is Little Bo Peep. I love that.
but it's like things like we can. There's a. I don't know if this is true, and I'm pretty sure it's not, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Is that we can? I can demand to urinate on the offside of a Hackney carriage, which anyone knows is a black cab, and they have to allow me to do that, and I'm pretty sure. But I can't be arrested inside the square mile. But I can't imagine me being drunk trying to sort of like urinate on the back of a cab and then telling the copper that they can't arrest me for it. So, but I think there's these things that you're meant to be able to do, but I obviously haven't tried
right there. I've got the freedom to waz against a fender of a London Hackney cab. I love that. Fantastic.
So that's the thing you don't know about me is I'm Little Bo Peep. Yes.
May I ask, is your dad still out there? because he won the Freedom of London as well. You were saying, or he was granted.
Yeah, I haven't seen my dad since I was 11, so I've got quite a complicated relationship with that. And one of the things was he was mentally ill when my parents split up, and that's the reason why they split up. Back in the good old mid-80s, they didn't know how to handle mental ill health. So so he disappeared, and I heard from him when I was about 16, 18, about making sure that I claim my freedom. Obviously not very well as well, but it's really weird because even with grief, because one thing that Gabba taught me was that if you are suffering from grief, because I've never had, I've lost my dad. I've lost my dad. It's sort of, he's not been part of my life, but I've never buried him. So so what I started doing was I started writing letters to him, and I write letters to people I've lost all the time. It's sort of part of my grief process. So I wrote letters to Steve. I lost a friend to a heart attack recently, and I write letters to my dad, and I just sort of update them on what's going on, because it's sort of like I find the idea of letter writing really cathartic, and
Yes.
And it's a real, because I did a lot of pen pal work when I was younger, and so I find the actual physical. I've got a really nice pen, so I've got a real sort of like, I've got an old school fountain pen, and I write letters. So that's how I deal with
That's
the death.
delightfully old school as well.
Yeah,
Proper fountain pen and write letters.
yeah.
It's
It
cathartic.
just sort of like so I write to him because I could basically, like, I started writing letters to him when I accepted that he'd gone. It was only recently, like 3 years ago, that I sort of like started working through the grief of him. I mean, he's been in therapy with me for I mean, I've been in therapy most of my life, but yeah, it's quite a strange acceptance that he could still be out there.
Yeah, I imagine.
And I went through a long time, especially when I was working in London, looking at every tramp, thinking that, sort of like, every homeless person thinking, "Is that you, Dad?"
Yes.
But I can't. I mean, it is what it is. It's out there. So I mean, the chances of him passed on is probably quite high. Yeah.
And what do you do with the letters? Do you symbolically burn them, or do you put them in a box, or what do you do?
I've done everything. I've burnt some. I've depending on who it is. I've sort of burnt them. Sometimes I just write them and just then next day chuck them in the bin. I've kept some. I mean, I write letters to. I mean, I've especially when you work in this world, you hear about death quite quickly. So I mean, we lost another classmate to Steve's. Darren, last January. So it was around this time last year, and it was quite hard for me because he was meant to be coming to a screening of my film, and then I heard 2 weeks later that he'd taken his own life. So so I wrote some letters to him. I wrote a letter to him last week, because it's really hard, especially with grief. You can't really. Yeah, there's many, as you know, stages of grief, but when it comes to things like suicide or things like abandonment with my dad, you don't really got the answers. You never get the answers. So so I find sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm sort of like just updating them. Sometimes it's like that. Quite a lot of the early ones with Steve was quite angry. I was angry with him. But and then same with my dad. My dad was I'm still that 11-year-old boy who was abandoned. So
yes, and all very profound resilience strategies. The idea of the catharsis of writing with a pen that means a lot to you. It's a good, beautiful, and all in the world of resilience and mental fitness.
Yeah, but I mean, positivity. You can't. I mean, I can't control what's happened to me in the past. I can only work out what I can do with now and future.
Yes.
So, and that's the reason why. That's the reason why being a parent, being a father, especially being a father who uses the word love, especially, is really, really important to me, because I think that we've got a whole generation of men. I do remember my dad saying "I love you," but my stepdad, who's a brilliant man, also called Steve, he he didn't show emotion. He didn't show the word love for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So it's really important for me that I tell my boy, especially because I still love my kids, but especially tell my boy that I love him. And he goes, "Yes, Daddy, I know," right? But I think that especially as men, we need to be told, and we need to say it, and we need to be told the word love, and we need to use that, and we need to use the power of that because I know that there's a whole generation of men. We did a little study where I asked 100 men, have they ever or do they regularly say to their dads they love them? And 83% of the men that I interviewed said they didn't or don't say they love them to their dads. And sort of like, so you've got a whole generation of men who are not told they're loved. And compassion for self, compassion for sort of like the world. I mean, like it's so the amount of times you see it on the football field where people are just angry because they don't know how they're not being cared for. They haven't got compassion for home.
Yeah.
So I do think we need to, as men, we need to sort of like not tap into our feminine side, but understand the word love and be more compassionate. It's really, really important. So yeah, so I've learned a lot inside that. Back to Gav being inspiring. Gav's taught me that. So
the most delicious shaking of the canopy of your tree. That's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 done. Now we're going to stay in the clearing, which is still on the football pitch. And now we're going to move away from the tree, and we're going to talk about alchemy and gold now. So when you're at purpose and in flow, Ben Akers, what are you absolutely happiest doing in what you're here to reveal to the world?
So I was trying to work out what to me, it's about ideas. So I'm the most happiest when I'm coming out of an idea and something that can be like a little bit of a change or a little bit of a like getting someone to think differently about that. That's when I'm most happy. Is that back to me being the CEO of a charity I didn't mean to start. I just want to cut up ideas. That's all I love doing. I love. Like, what about if we did this? What about if we did that? What about? That's when I'm the most happiest. That's when my world, the light goes on.
I was going to say, I'm thinking of you now, ping with a big light bulb above your head. Light bulb.
It's sort of like it's sort of, and then when you tell that idea to someone and they give you that smile, going, "Oh yeah, that's cool."
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Love that. Brilliant. That's a great answer. And now I'm going to award you with a cake. Ben, do you like cake?
Oh, everyone likes cake.
Of course you do. What cake do you want? I'm working on having a partnership with a cake company where I'll actually send you the cake.
Okay.
Nom, 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 nom. But what cake would you like?
Well, the thing is, it all depends whether it's about a cake that I'll actually get to eat, because I never get to eat cake in my house, right? Because I'll put it down, I'll turn away, and the cake's been eaten. We got a massive chocolate cake for my boy's birthday. We had this party at the weekend, even though his birthday is the 1st of January, and literally it said serves 20, right? And I didn't get a piece of it, right? So,
you've got a family of locusts, like
well, it's
the classic filling up the fridge and it's gone.
Yeah, but it's not just them. I mean, as I say, like I could walk into my house and there could be 9, 10, 12 kids in my house. I love it. It's noisy, but all my kids' best mates all live across the road and sort of stuff like that. And ours seems to be the centre of it. So yeah,
this is your cake. So what do you want?
So I like a good sort of a good sponge cake, please.
Sponge cake. I like sponge cake. Like that. Great. And now you get to put a cherry on your sponge cake, which is stuff like now. What's a favorite inspirational quote? You gave me the zigzag one earlier on. That doesn't have to be it. But what's a favorite inspirational quote, Ben Akers, that's always given you succor and pulled you towards your future?
So this is a very, very easy one for me because it's a line I live by daily. Does it make you better? Right. So everything that I do, and probably everything that I've done for probably the last 15 years, I hold that line up to everything. So this conversation with you, does it make me better? Yes. Does the decision I make this afternoon make me better? Yes. Sometimes you've got to take the money, right? Sometimes you have to, right? because that makes a better life for your family. So
Yeah.
so there's also a nice little caveat in there.
Yeah.
But everything that I do, every decision I make, every friendship I have, every piece of work I take on, every idea that I move forward for is about, does it make me better? And I literally hold that line up to everything that I do. So I've removed, unfortunately, or fortunately, I've removed people from my life because they didn't make me better.
I
So
absolutely love that. Thank you very much. Again, the simplicity and the sort of paring away to the essence of, a bit like, how are you out of 10? Does it make me better? Wonderful. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, Ben Akers?
I actually I actually wrote a piece for round the call for a talk that I did last week, and I did the 10 things I wish I'd say to my younger self. Right, so I've got 10 of them, but I'm not going to give you them all. But to me, one of the number 8 on this was enjoy the wins, forget the losses, and that was something that I didn't do enough when I was younger. I used to sweat the losses so much, especially in sort of the pitches we didn't win, or not getting not getting that validation that I
Yeah.
wanted, which actually. And then when the actual wins did come, and I was lucky enough to sort of have plenty of wins throughout my advertising career, and then plenty of wins in a richness in life since then. Um, and I think that we don't do that enough. We just have to just hold our breath and sort of go, "This is awesome." Just let it be awesome. Just
Yeah.
sort of like soak it in, going like, "This
I
is
even
this
love
is
that.
great."
Hold our breath. This is awesome. That's lovely.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think it's sort of I think that's where I was. I didn't enjoy I didn't enjoy the wins as much as I could have done.
Yeah.
I got lucky, especially in advertising. I got lucky enough to win like a lot of awards, and I don't think I ever took them for granted. But I I didn't I mean, I had this conversation with Alex James when I go, what was the best gig he did, and he goes, Glastonbury the second time. And I said, why was it the second time the best one? And he goes, because I didn't realise how amazing it was the first time.
Oh, yes.
And so when I was there the second time, I actually was able to sort of soak it up,
Yeah.
and that's exactly how I felt. I felt like if I was going to talk to my younger self more, it was like live in the moment more,
Yes.
enjoy those moments. But also, if you lose, just let go, let go. It's done now, right? So um, there's an amazing thing about elite sports. Is there is what actually separates, apart from ability, but what actually separates the mindset of elite sportsmen is their ability to forget.
Yes.
So like back to Kai Havertz of sort of missing an opener against City at the weekend. He still scored an amazing. He's still got the fourth goal.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's the ability, it's the actual ability to forget and not sweat the losses is really really is something that I would say to my younger self.
Lovely. I love the fact you've interpreted what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given as being notes to your younger self, which is perfectly brilliant. That's where we're going. So thank you for that. And you've given us number 8, and you've teased us with there are actually in your talk up to 9 more. Do the math. Okay. Brilliant. Now we're going to ramp up in a moment to Shakespeare to talk about legacy. But just before we get there, this is they don't like it up by Mr. Mannering. That pass the golden baton moment, please. Now you've experienced this from within, Ben, who would you most like to, don't like it up by Mr. Mannering, pass the golden baton along to in order to keep the golden thread of the storytelling going?
So I've been lucky enough to sort of to work with and be associated with lots of amazing people. And one of those amazing people is a man called Merlin Nation, who is a animator, artist, creative person, and he's just the reason why I wanted him to take this on is because he's playing his own thing about moving his art forward. He's an amazingly generous and talented person, um, and also every single time he did all the opening things for my films. He does animations for me, and he's just a genuinely genuinely beautiful man and a genuinely amazing person. So he is the person I would love to pass this golden baton on to, Merlin Nation.
A privilege. And what a great name, Merlin Nation. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And now, inspired by Shakespeare and all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players, we're going to talk about legacy now, borrow from the Jaques, which is quite a sort of melancholic speech, but it's about legacy now and how, when all is said and done, Ben Akers, you would most like to be remembered.
So I love the whistles or the outness of that. To me, it's. I think it is Talk Club. It is sort of like if I mean, obviously I want to be remembered for being a good father and a good sort of like a good husband and a good person, but I think that what we've created, not just me, the other five founders and all the men and the people inside the community and the people we've got working for us here. But if I was plucked from this earth tomorrow, and what would I want? What would I want to leave behind? It is Talk Club. It's sort of. I'm really proud of what we've created and the people that we've helped and the people we will continue to help. So I'm really, I think that's what my legacy is and what maybe I was put on this earth for, was sort of like for
I was thinking you've prepared your entire life for this moment, partly because of the Steve Genesis point, everything in it. So yes, that legacy is yours to claim. That's beautiful. And now we're going to do a lovely section called Show Us Your QR Code. So where can we find out all about you on the old interweb? I'm going to show you a QR code. This is the really important one to go to Talk Club Central, which is so tell us what the URL is and the domain is for those that can't scan the QR code.
Yeah, so talkclub.org is sort of like our main site. Talk Club Charity is all our socials. You can, and if you would like to sort of like chat to anyone here or set up a talk club or have any questions or want to donate or anything like that, email hello@talkclub.org.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Scan the QR code if you can at this point. And then this is how to follow Ben Akers on LinkedIn. Filmmaker, problem solver, co-CEO and founder, Mr. Ben Akers. There you are. So look for you on LinkedIn too. As this has been your moment in the sunshine in the Good Listening To show, Ben Akers, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I mean, I just want to thank you. I mean, I sort of, I think that what you've created and the energy that you bring to these sessions. I've watched a few of them in my research for coming on, and I just want to thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of this thing that you're creating. So well done to you, Chris. Thank you.
You're welcome. And also, I love the fact that will it make me better? Felt like a real compliment when you said, yes, it does, by being here. And I suppose we owe it to each other to ask what our exit. So over to you to curate the exit part of how are you out of 10?
Well, I have to be a 9. I can't sort of like, I'm still a tiny bit tired, so I can't be a 9.5, but I'll go on and I'll go a 9.5. I'll exit at a 9.5 and as soon as I walk out the door, I can drop down there. But at this moment, I'm a good 9.5. So thank you. And what are you now?
I'm a 9.5 too. I've absolutely loved the energy transmission and reciprocity that's happened in this. And should we just say one other thing about Clearhead and the importance of it? Behind you on your backdrop is all the iconography of, I love the bloke font, but also just talk us through Clearhead and everything it brings.
Yeah, so Clearhead, I'm going to go like that so you can just see the top of my head now. So Clearhead, as I say, we created it 2020, end of 2020, and it's a alcohol-free beer. 5% of total sales go to the community. I've been able to employ someone just off Clearhead, our community manager. So it makes a major difference. It is like the whole idea of it was changing the way that you interact with the charity, because we don't we will quite happily, like, we'd love you to run up mountains for us. We'd quite happily for you to give us your fivers, but also creating sustainable relationships with people, because we when these cases of clearhead go out, we've actually just put a card in there saying, because they're going out to, so for example, they're going out to pubs all over the country, and we sort of said, like, if you'd like to set up a club here. So now we know. So now there's been 5 clubs just been set up from this little card that goes out with a case of clearhead. So
Yeah.
it's just it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle of community, a vehicle for helping men talk and to look after themselves.
Yes.
So please buy. It's great. It's a lovely beer as well. Please buy some.
It is non-alcoholic, and it's fantastic. It's a banger of a beer.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Wonderful. So yes, thank you so much for joining me here on the show, Ben Akers. As I say, my sincere hope is to help even more with the sort of global reach of what this show can bring, because of the excitement of, I mean, UK Health Radio's mindscape would be totally appropriate for everything we've been talking about as well. So
Amazing.
Thank you so much for saying yes and for being here. And I'm glad it made you better to be here too.
Thank you.
So I've been Chris Grimes. Most importantly, that's been Ben Akers, founder of the Talk Club. If you'd like to have a conversation about being a guest too, the website for my show is thegoodlisteningtoshow.com. There are 7 different series strands as to how you can get involved, but this has been a best of Bristol Voices one, where it's been my great. Did I hear a psst there? Are you about to have a tuck into a can of Clearhead?
No, it was just my watch. I just put my watch on. I wish I had though. That was great.
That would have been a great outro. Oh, blimey, he's necking a can of Clearhead. Fantastic. And then finally, slightly dull one, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn too, boomtastic. There's the QR code for connecting with me on LinkedIn. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Chris Grimes. This has been Ben Akers. Anything else you'd like to say, Ben?
No, just thank you. And how are you out of 10?
9.5 and growing. Thank you very much indeed. And good night. I'm going to press a button called end stream now, which makes me feel like I'm just stopping weeing now. But here we go.